Um, Thank you guys for signing on today. And I hope that your day has been great. If not, then it will become great shortly.
I found it.
Okay,
You want me to go ahead and take it?
go ahead. What is the question?
My question is, I had wrote down is that everything on earth have energy, which is true. So everything on earth is light. Again, everything is the same. Then even through it don't look the same. We all have the power to change the energy if we understand the kingdom. So when the man asked Jesus, that's the question right here. And the man asked Jesus, tell me about heavenly things. And Jesus said that uh, you don't know anything about earthly things, and you want me to tell you about heavenly things.
Question.
Yeah, that was my question.
Okay,
I mean,
what Jesus is saying is that how can I tell you about spiritual enlightenment when you don't even understand the principles that involve the earth?
yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Because you remember, everything have light and and energy from it, and we is part of everything, but we don't look. Everything don't look alike, but we have the same energy.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Everything, energy is the same regardless of what form you see it in. And without energy, there is no life. So it doesn't matter whether it's a tree or a cat. All of them have the same energy. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any other questions?
Pastor, I have a question from yesterday, but I'm not sure how to form it.
Okay.
When Ron talked about the supposition that the Adam put himself to sleep for protection, and we talked about the protection, and I understood that, but we talked about from the mind of the sleeping Adam, the unconscious state of Adam that he's in now, we are now living and reaping those things that his mind is creating. So when we said he put himself to sleep, protect himself, and I knew that was in reference to naming the animals and the way he saw things. And I tried to, and it may not be a parallel here at all. I tried to parallel that with the Temple of Babel when the Creator said, "Let me confuse the languages," and I have not studied that, so I know it means more than just languages and all of that. So that because anything that man put his mind to, he will be able to do. So I guess my question is, if he put himself to sleep for protection, yet he's still creating the same things that he was creating before the sleep, wherein lies the protection then? Or, I don't know, is the question making sense? Are you following along the lines of what I'm trying to say?
I do. I understand.
Okay.
Ron, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
You want to address that, or do you want me to address it?
Well, I'm going to try to address now. I'd like you to address it as well. When I say he put himself to sleep, it was not an intentional thing. This was the spiritual. Remember, at this time, he's spiritual. This is not a physical man. So it was the Elohim, and I hate saying higher self, but it was the soulful part of him that put him in a trance, put him in a different place. The key to those verses that we read was, if you remember, in there it says, whatever he calls them, that's what it's going to be. So he set the stage until he wakes up. We are in the process of being awakened at this time. And So yeah, the protection is so that if you stay this way in your spiritual sense, there is no way you come back out of this. But being put to sleep and now being moved to a physical man, you have opportunity, because remember what it says: flesh and blood cannot inherit this. So you have opportunity to notice that you are asleep and to move to that place of an awakening on your own. That's what I was driving at when I said. Now, Pastor may see it in a different way, but I saw that as a thing of protection, and we, for the most part, are in the process of awakening at this time. Does anybody see it differently or disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that. However, I do. I don't think it's any different. It may be in addition to
Okay.
the idea of the sleep or becoming unaware. It ties into me. It ties in with the garden experience,
Mm-hmm.
where the sword was the flaming sword was put at the entrance. The idea of protection, as I saw it, was him being more having a greater affinity for what he perceived the animals to be, which was different than the affinity that he would have expressed had he had a greater affinity for the spiritual. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. He had more of an aggressive attitude toward creation than one of serenity and peace. And as a result of that, his spiritual essence became its protector. And as a result of that, Adam was able to bring into existence physical representation of his spiritual thoughts about how things should be. In bringing about those physical manifestations of those thoughts about how things should be, they were given a timeline or a period of existence, with a period of existence before they returned to their essence. In other words, just like man has in his physical body a certain length of time to remain in it before it goes back to its origin, meaning the spirit leaving the body. This was given so that the spiritual entity called Adam would not be eternally unripened. This gave the spiritual Adam the opportunity to become ripened, but at the same time to be the manifestation of the entity Elohim that it was created to be. If the aggressive nature that Adam perceived in terms of his thoughts had remained spiritual, then Adam would have been eternally unripened. How do I know it was aggressive? Because if we look at the animals, with Adam giving them each one of them a character, if we look at how they are, we see the aggressive nature of animals increasing with the aggressive nature of this physical man, even to this day. When man was more in tune with each other and in tune with the earth, then the animals were more of an asset than a liability to man. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
how I see it. Kathy, I don't know whether these responses help you see it clearer. If not, let's keep talking until we get it clear. or are there any other questions or comments in regards to this? Kathy?
It's clear for me. It's making more sense to me now. I thought I kind of understood it yesterday, but then I was just really replaying that in my mind. And I think the piece I was leaving out is the original state that Adam found himself in as a spirit being, as opposed to the Adam, the man that is creating the things that we're living with now.
Yes. See, this is how I see it. I see the mind as being the aggressive nature of Adam, with the ability to become serene. I see the soul as being the life, the tree of life itself. The soul being representative of righteousness and peace and harmony, where the mind is knowledge of good and evil. It is both. It has the propensity to swing either way. However, when man begins to live from its soul, then that soul begins to lead the mind to a place of peace within itself. It's when we breathe, if we're agitated about something, that agitation is experienced in a mental way or emotional way. However, when we breathe and calm ourselves and remind ourselves of who we are, this is the soul speaking to the mind and bringing the mind into rhythm with it. And when the mind is in rhythm with the soul, they become one. And that is the unicity or the serenity that exists between this physical realm and the spiritual realm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In the event that someone may need an example of that, it will be this, I think, anyway. If there is altercation taking place in your relationship, I'm not talking about necessarily husband, wife, I'm talking about any type of relationship. That is an earthly emotional event. However, when you begin to breathe and remind yourself of who you are, the peacemaker, and you bring yourself to a place of balance, now what has taken place is you have also brought peace to that emotion, that relationship, even if it's on your part, where you are no longer been out of shape, where you are no longer upset about it. So now, in your world of physicality and spirituality, there is harmony. I hope that's a good example. Any questions about that? Okay, are there any other questions?
This is Angela. I was going to ask you the example that you just gave. Could you look at it from a point of like when we're asleep, physically asleep, and and the spirit shows us spiritual things? You know, that changes. It changes the way that we look at things. You know, when we awaken from that dream, when we remember, you know, the spiritual things, the aspects of it. So
It has the ability to do that if we pay it any attention.
Yeah. Okay.
Dreams are about revelation. Dreams are about showing you something. And for the most part, we have been taught, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, a week ago maybe, we have been taught that dreams are nothing more than deceptions or things that have no meaning whatsoever. You just dreamed it. It means nothing. That's what we are often told. However, everything has a purpose. And simply because we don't understand the purpose, we should not be dismissive of it. Neither should we attribute to it an attribute that does not fit or does not belong there with it. So when we look at the original understanding of the dream and see that it reveals something, now we have more respect for it. We pay more attention to it, and rather than seeking someone else to tell us what it means, we are obligated to answer that question as to what it means to us. And if you don't know what questions to ask, that is when would you unmute your phone, please? That is when you consult someone else and they ask you questions. They don't give you answers to what it means as much as ask you questions to help you find an understanding to the dream that you had. Any questions or comments about that? Now, I am very much aware of, I feel the anxiousness to get to where we were last week, and we will. However, I do want to field any questions that are out there prior to us going, reviewing what we saw in the heaven and earth and the New Jerusalem. So are there any other questions? I guess what I'm saying is that I don't want you to refrain from asking questions because you think that we're not going to get there today. We will. Okay? Are there any questions or any other questions? Last week, we spoke from the 21st chapter of Revelations, and I believe the first two verses. And in doing so, we looked at the meaning of new heaven and the new heaven and the new earth, and how it relates to us. I'm not going to go into everything that we talked about in regards to that last week. However, I would like to see if there are questions about it. But first, permit me, if you will, to highlight a couple of things about heaven and earth, and then we can move into the questions in regards to our discussion last week. Okay. What we saw is that the word heaven in the Aramaic is Shemaya, and Shemayim in the Hebrew, and both of them have the same meaning, which is light. And in the Aramaic sense, Shemaya, the ayah, the suffix of that word means without limit. So it actually means light without limit. So when we are talking about heaven, we are talking about light without limit. So heaven is the light that binds all of us and everything that exists in the universe. It binds it together as one entity. When we look at the essence and aspects of light, there are no divisions or separation with light. Light and energy are the same. So heaven is the unlimited light that guides us through the pathways that we encounter in this earth's existence. Those pathways that the light is designed to guide us through are the pathways of religious ignorance and the spiritual uncertainty. Religious ignorance in that we are taught things that are foreign to the scriptures, things that we thought we were aware of, being made aware of, are things that do not exist. And that is making sure that we do, quote unquote, the right things on this checklist we've been given in order for us to spend an eternity in this location called heaven. The idea of spiritual uncertainty is seen in many different ways, one of which is an uncertainty as to whether or not we are doing the things the right way according to what we have been taught that Scripture says we are the way we're supposed to be doing them. Spiritual uncertainty is also being uncertain as to whether or not we have the ability to bring about changes, not just in our lives, but in this earth realm itself. Example, changes like bringing about an alternate course for mankind and placing mankind on a pathway that would benefit everyone or the whole of mankind. We have been told that we are supposed to pray and change things, and we are supposed to keep praying. Well, we pray the way we've been told to pray, and if the truth be told, we have prayed and seen no change. However, when we understood or began to understand that we are indeed Elohim and we have been endowed with the life energy to bring about change in this earth realm, and it is done through meditation, and meditation is focusing on the essence of who we are as well as the origin of our essence and our desires for the benefit of humanity. In doing so, what we have seen is that the most base thoughts of men and the most horrific actions of men have bubbled to the surface. And you would think that our desires for humanity have gone awry when we see these things bubble to the surface. However, the light has shown us that in order for peace to be experienced, these things must be exposed in order for us to bring civility to humanity by changing the direction and the thoughts of the hearts of men who are perpetrators of these horrific things. And since we have begun to see that, we have experienced change, not just the surfacing of the evilness, but we have experienced change for the benefit or for the better of humanity. And those changes have begun to be seen when we look at the idea that the horrific nature of this pandemic has torn at the hearts of humanity, yet in doing so, it has softened the hearts of many who are in seats of power, who have the power to change how health care is meted out in this country and in this world, as a matter of fact, and also to recognize the disparities in the economic standards in this country and working to bring about some sense of righteousness and justice and equality when we see these disparities. So what I'm saying is that we have, as a result of embracing the light that we are, have become the agents of change for humanity, even though humanity is not even aware of the source of the changes that it's experiencing. The idea of this new earth speaks more to how we are expected to relate to the earth in regards to the commandment that we have been given to dominate it. This idea, this concept of domination tells us that we are to be influencers of the earth and not destructive in our relationship to the earth. Our essence, the substance of our creation, is what sustains the earth. In other words, the light that we are and our passion and desires for life itself is the sustaining force in the earth, which means that we have the power to heal the earth. We recognize that the earth is hurting. We realize that the earth is more than just this celestial ball that we inhabit. The earth consists of a system, and that system includes the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the other heavenly bodies in this universe. So would you please make sure that your phones are muted? Thank you. Would you mute your phones, please? We have, when I say that we have the power to heal the earth, before that can even happen, we must embrace the fact that we are Elohim and are able to deliver the earth just as we have been delivered from the antics of men that believe that the scriptures give men the right to do anything they choose to do to the earth as long as they are benefiting from it. Well, the earth itself, as I said, stands in need of being healed. The earth is crying out to us. The earth is like a child who actually is crying out to be delivered from the pain and the suffering that it is enduring. The earth feels like it has been abandoned and neglected, and it feels unloved because of the way it has and is being treated currently. It's being treated as a source for material abundance, but not looked upon as a partner, an entity an entity in this partnership that has as its goal and purpose to assist in sustaining life here on this celestial ball called Earth. So when it talks about the new heaven and the new earth, it's not talking about this earth is going to be destroyed, because it's not. What it's talking about is there will be a reappraisal of how we relate to the earth, and in doing the period of appraisal, we will realize that the painfulness of the earth does not have to continue, and this road of destruction, this course of destruction that the earth has been set upon, can be altered and must be altered in order for us to fulfill the essence of who we were created to be, and to fulfill the command that we were given to dominate this earth, to be influencers of this earth for the good of everyone who depends on it. And when I say everyone, I'm not just speaking of men. I'm talking about the trees and the birds. I'm talking about the rabbit and the lion. I'm talking about the snake and the lizard. Everything that has life depends upon us to sustain this life in this earth. And that is what is meant when we are given the commandment to dominate this earth. We have an obligation to change the course of things, in relationship to how we relate to the earth. So, are there any questions about the new heaven and the new earth?
Reverend Richard.
Yes.
When you say new heaven and a new earth, is that considered the new thing that, we say all the time, God is doing a new thing, which I don't think when people say it, they don't really know what they're saying, to realize what they're saying, a new thing. So is that the new thing that verse 5 talks about?
That's a part of it. That's not all of it. That God is doing a new thing. That is that charismatic saying without any explanation. The new thing that God that is being done, the first new thing that God has done is to get us to realize that we are the image of God, and we are Elohim. Until we embrace that, there is no new thing to be done, because there is nothing we can do. We don't believe we have the power to do it. It's like you do not believe that you're ever going to learn how to drive a car, then you won't learn how to do it. If you don't believe that you have the power to learn that, then it would be a painful journey for you to learn it if you ever learn it. So we start out with this new thing of finding out that there is no new thing under the sun. The new thing to us is understanding that there is no new thing. So that may sound antithetical, but that's where we are. Because think about it. What new thing can Elohim do that has not already been done? We can be made aware of it, and it is new to us in that we are aware of it, but it's not new in terms of its existence. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes. Sure
Okay.
it is.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Then we talked about, briefly anyway, we talked about the New Jerusalem. And when we talk about the New Jerusalem today, I do want to touch some aspects of it, but I'm not going to deal with each of the stones and all of the intricate details of it, because I was not led to do that. However, there are some aspects of it I will deal with, okay? When we talked about the New Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, as we were taught, was a description of heaven. Now that we've read it for ourselves, we know that that's not true. When we understand that the New Jerusalem is representative of righteousness, is representative of peace, and the solidarity of humankind, the solidarity of hope, and the solidarity of change, we get to a place where we no longer are hoping for anything, that it exists in reality. What we begin to understand is that the embracing of the concept of the New Jerusalem changes hate to love, and it really gives us a true meaning of what it is like to be our brother's keeper, without regard to how our brother treats us. The New Jerusalem was created for the benefit of humanity. The New Jerusalem is referred to as a bride that's adorned as a bride for her husband. Now, the word that was translated as husband is actually humankind. So, adorned as a bride, the New Jerusalem is adorned as a bride for humankind. The question becomes is, how is a bride adorned? How the bride is prepared and dressed for a wedding, to be adorned for the bridegroom is to be adorned for a wedding. I'm sorry, the adorning of a bride rather is to be dressed for a wedding. So Jerusalem, in its reference in the Revelations, as well as in the 65th chapter and the 18th verse of Isaiah, is referenced as a sheep. So humankind is receiving its bride, which is righteousness. Humankind becomes one with the righteousness and the peace that has come from the light that vibrates throughout the universe. And what I'm saying is this: all of humanity becomes one with the righteousness and peace that has been sent through enlightenment. Humankind becomes intimate with the understanding that this experience of the New Jerusalem and everything in it is for its benefit. What am I saying? If humankind is the object of the bride, then humankind becomes the husband to the bride, which means that in order for there to be offsprings, or in order for the bride to give birth, the bride must first be intimate with the husband or with the bridegroom. So, what I'm saying is that the intimacy between righteousness, peace, and joy produces something. The intimacy between humanity and the New Jerusalem, which is righteousness, peace, and joy, the intimacy of those brings about a result in a pregnancy that brings about a birth of something. The New Jerusalem comes out of heaven. It comes from the light. It comes from out of the light. So it means that the light gave birth to the New Jerusalem for the purpose of becoming one with humanity. The light gave the bride to her husband, humankind. So what happens when there is a consummation of that marriage? When the intimacy takes place between the New Jerusalem and humankind, what is the result of that? What changes? What do we see as a result of that? Well, if we look at the scriptures, it talks about, in that 10th verse, what does John say? And he, meaning the angel, carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Are you with me? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Question? Comment? Okay. So, when John says that, and he said it has having the glory of God, her brilliance was like a very costly stone, as a stone of crystal clear jasper, meaning that the New Jerusalem was as crystal clear as the jasper stone, a stone that was in the ephod that the priest wore. It had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and the gates and at the gates 12 angels, and names were written on them, which are those of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. This, what John is saying is this, that the entrance to the New Jerusalem are 12 gates. And these 12 gates have attached to a high wall. And the names of the 12 tribes are written there, as well as messages from the angels. So, what is John seeing here? The nation that is searching. The 12 tribes are representative of the nations that is searching for truth. The people, whether it be a Muslim or a Hindu, the nations that are searching for peace, their message can be found in the same place as anyone else's message in the midst of the New Jerusalem, meaning that in the midst of righteousness and peace, there is a message of spiritual solidarity. There is a message of spiritual humility. There is a message of oneness that will bring all of humanity together as one entity. Regardless of the direction that you travel in, you will end up in the New Jerusalem, meaning it does not matter whether you are traveling from the direction of a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Confucian. It does not matter. If you are sincerely searching for truth, you will end up in the same place. If you go beyond what you have been taught, and you look at what you will find, what you read in the Quran or in the Veda or in the Bible, you will find that all of the principles, the Gita, all of the principles are the same. The spiritual principles of every religion that religion now that I have spoken of and more are the same. The objective, the foundational belief is that there is a greater being who has created us in its image, and it has given us the power not only to be one with it, but the power also to be loving kindness to each other. This is speaking of. The gates are not physical gates with Peter standing there with a key on his shoulder, on a keychain around his waist. This is a gate. These are gates, rather, which speaks of entranceways into the truth. Any questions about that?
Sage, I have a question.
Sure.
So, if anyone who truly is seeking, does that mean they will find?
Yes.
They will end up at those principles and learn.
Yes, ma'am. We are examples of that.
Okay.
We are, as far as I know, everyone have been reared in a Christian setting.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that we are seeing as to be the truth and the true nature of the book, what we find out when we look at the Buddhists or when we look at Islam, we find that the Islamic Sufi sees the same thing that we see. When he gets beyond their earthly religious antics or the earthly religious doctrines that they have been taught.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Say again, Sage. I'm sorry.
I'm asking if that was clear to you, Vermeer, before I go to Audrey.
That's clear. I have one other question. Even atheists will find their way there, right?
If they choose to.
If they choose to. Okay. All right. I'm done.
Okay. Audrey.
Okay, so you're saying the gates on either side coming from all directions.
Yes.
symbolic of all the various religions and whatever, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever.
Right.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
Okay. And then
And that's primarily because all of the 12 tribes are representative of all of the people from the patriarchs, correct? So any religion that evolved from one of those tribes.
yes, because all religions came from Abraham. The religions of the East, if you look at the 25th chapter and see what the gift that he gave his 5 sons to carry into the East, that is speaking to the spiritual understandings that he had, that he taught to his 5 sons, who he had by Keturah, and sent those into the East. And the areas, if you do the travels that they engaged in, you will find that they are in the areas where these various religions had their origin. But not only that, but also that the wives of the 12 sons of Jacob, the wives were of different nations. All the wives were not of the Jewish or the Hebrew nation. They were from different nations, and the offspring took on the identity of the mother and not the father. Any other questions or comments, Barbara?
I have a question. So then, that is indicative of the one but many concept.
Absolutely, it is. Everything we talk about is yes, ma'am.
All right.
See, there is nothing that is exclusive about anything that's spiritual. Okay. Everything that's spiritual is inclusive. You don't get to a place of exclusivity until you begin to embrace religion. Any questions about that? Okay, now, Audrey mentioned the different directions of the gate, and it talked about 3 gates. It talked about complete spiritual awareness is available regardless of the direction that you travel. And then it says that the walls of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. This is talking about the names being on the foundation stone, or speaking to what Jesus taught, as well as what is taught by those who followed him. Not only is it what Jesus taught, but you will find that the principles that Jesus taught, the spiritual principles that he taught, are not principles that are only found in the teachings of Jesus. The teachings that Jesus taught can also be found in Buddhism. The things that Jesus taught can also be found in any other spiritualist religion on the face of the earth. The Native American has the same principles that Jesus taught. So the foundation of the foundational stones are truth. The truth of the teachings is what the foundational stones are. And even in the 17th chapter of John, not only did Jesus speak about keeping those or giving those the blessings that he had received, he said not only to the 12, but those who were to follow them as well. So regardless of who comes after or before, the journey is the same, even though the experiences are different. Any questions about that? Okay. Then it goes into the measurements, and it goes into the stones. And I have not been guided to anything that involves going into depth with the stones. And when it talks about in this 22nd verse, I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb are His temple. What is He saying? He didn't see a temple in the New Jerusalem because the Lord God is the temple. You are the temple. There is no structure. You are the temple of righteousness. You are the temple of peace and harmony. The city has no need of the sun or the moon to shine upon it, for the glory of Elohim, the glory of God, has illuminated it, and His lamp is the Lamb. What is He talking about? There is no need for the sun, the moon, or the stars. Elohim is the light. You are the light. The light does not need the sun, moon, or the stars. They are the light of the earth. The sun, the moon, and the stars are the light of the earth. They are also the life of the earth. The light doesn't need the light of the earth. The earth needs the light of Elohim to flow through it. All I'm saying is this. Elohim doesn't need the sun, the moon, and the stars. Those are the lights for the earth. The light of Elohim flows through the sun, the moons, and the stars and sustains life in the earth because it flows through the earth as well. Any questions about that?
I got one question. So you mean that the radiation of light come from the Father?
I'm saying yes, the light comes from the universe, the Father, Avun, Ein Sof, however you want to term it. The light of all light is the source of light.
Gotcha.
The sun, the moon, and the stars receive their light from the light. They receive the life that they sustain from the life that gave them life. The sun, the moon, and the stars sustain life in the earth only because they have received life from the light. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So what you're saying, Pastor, is that we are emanating that light now, and we are sustaining our life right now. Everything that we're speaking of is happening now, not when you die, not in the great by and by. This is what we're doing right now.
Right now. We are that light right now. There is no waiting for the next generation to bring this into being. There is no, after I exit this body, I'm going to heaven. None of that. It is right now. That is the reason people are drawn to you. They are searching for something. That is the reason people will hear a message preached, or they will hear some things that don't sit right with them, and they will come to you for clarity. And if you don't understand it enough to give them clarity, you are obligated to either find the answer through your research or find the answer by calling and talking with someone, because they are searching for something. And if you give them something that is not correct, if you mislead them, simply because you feel like you have to give them an answer, then their blood is required at your hands. In other words, the stumbling that they will encounter is because of you, and you will pay a price for that. Does that help you? Kathy with the K.
Yes.
Okay. The nations shall walk by its light, and the kings of the earth shall bring their glory into it. What in the world is he talking about? The nations will walk by its light. What he's saying is this, that every nation will be guided by this light. And the leadership of the nation will bring their balance into it, meaning that the light will bring balance to humanity, and will bring balance to the nations, rather, and the leaders of the nations will bring that same balance into the presence of the light. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not yet. Keep talking.
What I'm saying is this. And let me use, the United States of America is a nation. And the light that we are will bring balance to this nation. And the leadership in this nation will bring that same balance into the presence of those who are searching for light. The nation will not be balanced if the leadership is not balanced. That is the reason the focus of our desires for change is focused on leadership. It's focused on the altering or the tearing down or the destruction of a system and replacing it with a system of righteousness. And when that system of righteousness is replaced, then the leadership who are seeking to do the right thing, the just thing for humanity, will exemplify that same balance when it comes in contact with the light. Did that help you, Charles?
Yes, sir. I caught it.
Okay. And it says, and nothing unclean, and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. What is he saying? He's saying that those who are in abomination and lies will not come into it. This is not talking about whether or not you lied about whether you bought a car. This is speaking to spiritual practices. This is speaking about the lack of cleanliness when it comes to spirituality versus religion/government. This is speaking of the relationship that we have with each other as well as the earth itself. It says that, but only those whose names are found in the Lamb's book of life. Those are the ones who will enter it. So what is this thing about the Lamb's book of life? No religious rituals, no religious doctrines will be able to enter. The doctrine of men will not be able to enter the gate, even though the gates are left open all the time. Only those who reflect the character of the essence of who they were created to be will be able to enter. The Lamb's book of life is the light that sees the heart of every man. It is the light of life that is available to every man. What I'm saying is this: the Lamb's book of life, is the light that knows the heart of every man, which means that if your desire to enter the New Jerusalem, or if your desire is to understand these truths because your intent is to make a living off of it, or your intent is to use it to elevate yourself or to manipulate others, you will not be able to do that because you will not be able to enter. You will not receive the understanding of the light. Are you with me? The idea that the light is always aware of our desires and our principles. This is the thing. If the heart, if your soul is not right, if you are seeking with your mind for philosophical purposes, if you're seeking academically, you will not see. This whole idea of book speaks to character. The named in the Lamb Book of Life, it speaks to the character of one who is known. Because everyone's name is in the Book of Life. Everyone. But your heart, if your heart does not line up with the Book of Life, then you can't go in. Meaning that you will not have access to these truths. Does that make sense?
Yes.
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 Okay. The prevailing doctrine, the thing that we call doctrine in this sense of spirituality are principles of light. It is not, they are not doctrine, because the principles of enlightenment overcomes all doctrine. So, any questions? There are a couple other things I want to touch before I get to a place. Okay. And in verse 20, chapter 22. And he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and the Lamb. In the middle of the street, and on either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nation. That has puzzled me forever and a day. Well, what I saw in regards to that is, in the midst of everything flows what? The energy of life. This idea of the water of life is speaking to the energy of life. And when it says it's coming from the throne of Elohim and the Lamb are the teachings that Jesus brought forth. And Elohim is the essence of who we are. So it's talking about the life energy that's flowing from the authority that Elohim and the teachings have. And it flows through the city, and on each side of the river is the tree of life, which is saying to me that no longer do we have to stand as did Joshua and say, choose you this day which God you're going to serve, whether it's the God on this side of the river or the other side. By saying that, Joshua was implying that you have to travel on this side of the river and separate yourself from those on the other side. When we are in this city, when we are intimate with this New Jerusalem, something is produced, and what comes out of that is the light, that the embracing of the light, to the extent that we no longer have to choose. Why? Because we are on both sides of the river. We can be in the midst of all the chaos and still remain who we are. We can be in the midst of the most evil people on the face of the earth. We can be in the midst of the most horrific thoughts and still remain who we are. Why? Because we are the life energy that flows in the midst of righteousness, peace, and joy. Any questions?
Hey, Rep, when you talking about the water of life is clear and crystal, that means it's not tainted with nothing on this earth that man made. I'll say it.
It means that your truth, the truth that you see in the scriptures, is not tainted with religion. You're not trying to play both sides against the middle.
Yep. Thank you.
You're not coming here talking about, I do understand that Easter has nothing to do with Jesus, and then you at sunrise service. Or you, or you can't wait for Resurrection Sunday to get here. You can't have it both ways.
Gotcha.
The fruit that you bear is always fresh and is always ripe. The fruit is the wisdom and the understanding that you make available to those who have not yet had the experience that you have had. When it talks about the fruit on the trees, it is saying that there is a continuous ripeness of the fruit. Let me put it this way. If we had to do it in a time frame, our goal every time we meet 3 times a week, every time we speak in reference to the scriptures, whether it be in our meeting periods or not, the efforts that we make is to make sure that the fruit that we are given, is nutritional, that the fruit that we are given is ripened. It is so we're an understanding that we have experience. And then it says, any questions about that first? If I'm not clear, please raise the question. Because I will think I said something in my head and it did not come through my lips.
The fruit is,
what it says.
sorry. The fruit is what again?
The fruit is the wisdom and understanding that we receive because of our search for truth. We become the tree that bears the fruit. The fruit that we bear is wisdom and understanding and experience and knowledge, of course. Audrey?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Was there someone else with Audrey? I mean, at the same time that she spoke.
Yeah, it was me, but I forgot what I was going to say. I lost it. The fruit is always ripe and always nutritious. Oh, I know what it was going to be. So we don't have to go through the machinations of thinking about whether or not what we said was heard by someone, because there is always someone. If the fruit is always ripe, and nutritious, there is someone who will grasp that and be able to ingest it and understand it.
Right, absolutely, always. This is it. If there was no one there to grasp it or to understand it, if there was no one there, there is no soil there to plant, for the seed to be planted in or sown in, then it will not come. There's no need to say it. There's always somebody there to receive it. Even if they challenge it, it's still there. The leaves, even the leaves will heal. The leaves are the speech. The leaves are the words that we speak on a normal day without any conscious thought of teaching and without any thought of influencing the life or the change to anyone we're talking with. In other words, this is what I'm saying. The leaves is no different than our common speech where you talk to a store clerk or cab or Uber driver or an adversary or religious leader, it doesn't matter. Just in your common everyday speech. Your common everyday speech has the power to bring spiritual healing simply by you being in contact with someone. Example, we've heard Kathy talk about the little old lady that she always is talking to in the stores and stuff. We've heard people talk about how people always come into them with the conversation about something or questions, and they don't know why. Well, it's because they see something there. Their soul sees light there, and your kindness, your conversation, your exchange with them is infusing light into them, even though there is no thought in your mind of doing that. You're not thinking about teaching them. You're not thinking about being righteous to them. You're not thinking of any of that. You're just that. That's who you are. And they come into your presence for a reason. If you say to someone, "You look nice today," and they say something, "Well, that would be great if I could hear that at home." They were sent across your pathway because they needed to hear that. We don't know what things that we consider to be salutations or simple salutations. We don't know whether or not they are powerful enough to pull someone from the brink, or whether we are there to give those salutations, but them to share with someone else for the same purpose. These are the leaves that's on the trees, on the fruit trees. Does that make sense to you? Now, don't get me wrong. There are other understandings or aspects of this that other people may see. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that's to be seen in any of this. Why? Because I'm saying what I'm sharing what I have been shown. And the leaves have more powers than that when it comes to healing. All I know is that when the scripture speaks of healing, it's speaking of spiritual healing. Any questions about that? Okay.
I don't have a question about the leaves.
Go ahead.
I have a question that relates back to the fruit,
Okay.
because it says that each of the trees bears 12 different fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that saying that there's nourishment available regardless of what your previous background has been, whether you're Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, whatever? There's something that's available and appropriate that will nourish you spiritually.
Yes.
Is that what the 12 means?
Yes. Now think about that. That being said, that being the case, how can you nourish someone if you tell them, if you have not heard the name of Jesus, you're going to hell? This speaks to anyone. It doesn't matter who it is. That is the reason. It is inappropriate. Hear me well. It is inappropriate and antithetical for you to quote any scripture to anybody. Even if you know what it means, don't quote it. Talk about what it means. If they come to you with the scripture, that's one thing. If they ask you about the scripture, that's another thing. However, if they're seeking understanding and you got to stand there and quote scriptures to them, and 9 times out of 10, you don't know what they mean, then you are doing something contrary to the scriptures. Because the question becomes this. If you say that you are quoting the scripture, how do you know you're quoting it correctly? Because that's the King James Version. That's the New American Standard. That's the New International Version. That's the Hebrew. That's the Aramaic. That's the Greek. That's the Latin. So what are you doing? All you're doing is calling words. Just because you can remember some words in the order that they're written doesn't mean it's the right thing to do to give them to somebody who's hurting. Does that make sense to you? I certainly hope so.
What you're saying then is don't quote it, be it.
Be it. Yes, ma'am. And unless there are questions or comments, the final thing I want to say today is this. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be on their forehead. And they shall experience the presence of the light, and the light of his presence shall be seen by the eye of their soul. Any questions about that?
I have a question, but it's backing up to the fruit and the leaves.
That's fine.
So if the leaves are for the healing of the nations, what's the fruit for? The fruit is for...
The fruit is the wisdom, the teaching.
Okay, so that's for the enlightened person.
Yeah, what we are doing now is the fruit. What happens when you go to the store and you engage in conversation with somebody and you end up talking with them, and before you know it, they tell you their whole life story, and you helping them deal with it. Those are the leads. You're healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not even thinking about teaching them. You're just helping them through life.
Okay. So we need the fruit in order to be able to give the leaves.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Just so I'm clear on what Audrey was saying just now, this is Vermel. We're getting the fruit for nourishment so that we can provide leaves for those we come into contact with. Do I have that?
We are getting fruit for nourishment so we can be fruit for anyone or leaves for anyone. It doesn't matter. Whatever is needed, that's what we are.
Is there a difference between leaves and fruit?
Yes, it is.
I need clarity on that.
Okay, if you look at an apple tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
The apple and the leaf are different.
Yes.
But without the leaf, there's no apple. The apple is where you get the majority of your nutrition from, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the leaf is just as important because it's a support system for the apple. It's also nutritious, but it's an afterthought. A leaf is something you don't think about when you're pulling apples from the tree.
No, we don't.
And in a general conversation that you have with the store clerk, you don't think about I'm teaching them, I'm giving them wisdom. It's afterthought. When you are just in general conversation, you give no thought to what that you are giving knowledge or you're giving understanding. You're just talking.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. If
And
anyone
in that talking, we're supporting.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Anyone else? Feel free to add to, or if you see it differently, please let me, help me to see it as well.
Sage, could you say again what book and what chapters you're unfolding?
Revelations 21,
okay,
and portion of chapter 22.
Okay.
Into 4, I think. No, yeah, 4. Any other questions? By no means, again, am I saying that this is the crux of this is what that I've exhausted anything that's in the verses that we discussed. Quite the contrary. Barely touched the surface.
Okay.
So,
may I ask one more thing before you go?
yeah.
Just for clarity for me, and it's along the lines of what everyone else is asking. So what you're saying is that when I am sitting here being taught, I am fruit. I'm learning. I'm learning of the way. I am that fruit tree that will be able to bear fruit for someone else.
Yeah.
And so even when I'm in a situation and I'm just being myself, and by being myself, being whatever I need to be in that situation that I need to be, nothing rehearsed, someone calls or someone comes across you in a store or whatever, and you begin to talk, if that person, because what I'm hearing is that we are fruit and we are leaves, but we interchangeably can be whichever is needed when it is needed. So if you are asking me things that I need to share with you that helps you to see enlightenment, I'm bearing fruit at that point. But if you're coming to me broken and you're in pain or you're hurt or whatever, I'm providing healing to you at that point. So I am both, and I can use them interchangeably depending on whatever the need is.
Yeah, and you don't think about which one you're using.
Right. It's nothing that I have to stop and think about. It is just being who I am, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Right. You are the tree. When that deer walk up to that plum tree, you don't know whether he go eat the plum or the leaves.
Okay.
So you are what is needed at that moment because you are the tree, and you are not. You don't determine, well, today I'm gonna be the fruit. Tomorrow I'm gonna be the leaf. It doesn't work like that. When you embrace being Elohim, you are the principle that is needed at that moment. Period. And Revelations is simply a book, a book of metaphors that talks to us about the intricate details of the substance of Elohim. It speaks to us not only about how we are fearfully and wonderfully made, but it also speaks to us about how we become aware of who we are and how we unconsciously dispense the righteousness that we are by virtue of being that righteousness. It's a righteous thing sometimes to tell someone you don't need to say that, or to tell someone you're wrong. That's a righteous thing. But you don't say, well, I'm going to say the righteous thing today. I'm going to tell you you're wrong. You just speak the truth. Now, this is the other part of that. We are going to encounter people who are going to have the same understanding, who are going to be able to exude the same energy and not be able to explain 1 iota of what's happening. Because they live in an environment where the life energy is being poured out. And they're going to encounter that life energy. And their attitudes and their thought processes are going to change. And they're going to approach things the same way that we do and not understand why. It doesn't matter. But it does matter that we understand why. And the reason it matters is because if we don't discuss it, if we don't break it down to understand it, then the energy does not permeate the environment. It's not just for us to hear with our ears or even just with our souls. It is for the purpose of being in rhythm with the universe, vibrating with the universe, So the rhythm of this universe can be available to those who are out of rhythm. And when they seek to be in rhythm, they find that peace. And they don't know the source of that peace, and it doesn't matter. All they know is that they found it, and then they share their experience with someone else. And what they're actually doing is being that fruit and that leaf, because they have become the tree and don't even know it. The only way that we are able to change the heart, the only way that love is capable of covering a multitude of entanglements, is that the life energy of that love permeates the atmosphere. But it doesn't permeate the atmosphere if the words of that is not spoken and the energy of that is not released. Abracadabra, I create with words. Our words create. I am not a co-creator. I am a creator. The source of all light, the source of my being, is a creator. And because I was given the charge of dominating this earth, I become the creator in this earth. However, I can elicit the support of the one who created me to guide me, because I am being dominated by my mind, and I don't understand the principles of my soul to the extent that I can do it unilaterally. So the most effective thing that I can do unilaterally is have a deep desire to be everything that I was created to be the essence of everything that I was created to be. I can do that unilaterally. And at the same time, my desire is to be guided by the forces of the universe that brought me into existence. When that happens, everything about me changes. I began to realize the power that I am is not the power for me. The power that I am is the power for many. And by embracing the many, I become a stronger one. When I don't embrace the many, I become the weakest link without any notion of the obligation that's on my shoulders that was given by the one who said, dominate. Any questions about that? Any comments? Okay, let me leave you with this. Now that we understand that heaven is the light that flows through everything that is, and earth is a system that this light sustains, and it sustains life on it, this earth system. And the New Jerusalem is the righteousness that we have sought for so long. This is not heaven, it is the righteousness. It is the peace. That's who we are. And because of our intimate relationship with righteousness, we are able to bring wisdom, the wisdom of life and the understanding of it to those who have not had our experiences. We are able to look at a bill being passed in Georgia They're suppressing the vote for a group of people and understanding that the wisdom in that is it's pressing people to become one. It's forcing them to see that we are one. It's forcing them to see that an injustice to one is an injustice to all. We see 8 people, I believe it is, who got killed there in Georgia. And we see the Asians now are coming to realize that you have a stake in this unicity of our Creator as well. You stood on the sidelines and felt like you were one up on other people of color, especially the Africans. And now you begin to see, just like if it were not for the African, there would be no one in this earth, there wouldn't be no you either. And you are seen no differently than the African. So now you cast your lot with the African. And in doing so, because of the loving kindness, the forgiveness, you are able not only to forgive, but you're able now to recognize you're not one all alone out there better than anyone. You are many, as well as the one. That's the wisdom in all of the things that we are seeing take place right now. The spiritual, righteous wisdom in these events is there for the understanding. However, it cannot be done if the understanding is because I want to be a civil rights leader or you want to be known for what you're seeing or what you're saying. You want to write a book, you want to stand on the stage and talk about what you see so that you can be famous for that. No, this is not it. When you stay in the cave that you've been placed in, and you see the light in that cave, and there is no candle, there is no lantern, but you see the light in that cave, and because of the light that you're able to see in that cave, you're able to guide humanity on the right pathway. And no one knows that you are the light on that pathway. All they know is that they're being guided. And the light that's guiding them, they have no clue as to its origin. It doesn't matter. This is who we are. This is our journey. And if there are no questions, no comments, I'm done for the evening. Questions or comments? Don't let my saying I'm done for the evening stop you from asking a question or making a comment. I thank you for your time. And my desire is that peace will always be with you, and you will never doubt who you are. Hold fast to who you were created to be. Be well. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you. Enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.